Hi, everybody. So Richard mentioned that the Green Committee was interested in talking a little bit more about the comprehensive plan and figuring out what it says and how it relates to sustainability and the Green Committee's mission in the city. So I thought the best thing to do would be to jump right into it and take a look. So if you go to the city's website, I would suggest that you go in and take a look at this document. So you'll see right off the bat that sustainable is one of the values that was identified by extensive community engagement as one of the 5 core principles. I want to say a couple things first. You're going to notice right off the bat that this is August 2016, and you're going to say, oh, don't most communities update their master plans every few years? That's true, but let me tell you why that doesn't exactly apply to this plan. A master plan, a traditional master plan, is a time-limited document that says, hey, City X, in the next couple of years, given your financial situation, your priorities, your community feedback, potential grants, etc., these are the projects you should prioritize and do. And once you get those done, go back to the drawing board and come up with your next master plan. This plan is a comprehensive plan. It is not a master plan. It is a decision-making matrix that doesn't speak about particular projects because it's supposed to create the framework of community governance. It's really getting back to basics. It's saying, hey, city government, this is the way you need to start making decisions if you want to be in accord with the values of your residents and the vision that you have of your community long into the future. This is a long-range decision-making document. It is not a master plan. Just need to say that because I think there's a lot of confusion, and I think most of the confusion comes from the fact that a lot of people in elective office haven't read this. So they don't really know what it is. And they're only familiar, maybe tangentially, to the idea of a master plan, which is something Geneva used to have. We used to have a lakefront plan. We used to have a city master plan. And all of those things were project specific. They talked about things like adding a hotel, putting in a road diet. At one point, there was discussion about an outlet mall or casino on the lakefront, right? Those were master planning documents, very short term, very here's what you should do. Hello, Kat. And that is not what this document is. So I just want to set the stage by making that clear. So part 1 is the kind of abbreviated version, and the expectation, again, this plan was made by a committee of about 20 local residents and city councilors at the time. Tony DiCostanzo and I were the 2 at-large councilors representing the council on this committee. We did see it through all the way to the end and through the passage on the committee, even though neither of us were elected officials at the time this was adopted. The committee was diverse. The committee put on these listening sessions, what you might consider salons, where we had very targeted, guided questions by the consultants developed in consultation with the steering committee to really get good feedback from the community. None of it was open-ended. None of it was, hey, what do you want in Geneva? It was, given that Geneva can't have everything, here's a snippet of our financial position. Within these parameters, what are your priorities? That's the kind of effective and really helpful decision-making and feedback that we got on this. So it's really a good, important document. And again, the other communities that are consultants for this, CZB LLC, they are from Alexandria, Virginia, and now have offices in Colorado, maybe New Mexico, and Maine. The other projects that they've done in other communities are these long-term strategies. They are not master plans. So here are the 5 values that, again, after a lot of community input, and there is a part 3, which is the complete compendium of community feedback, diagnostic tools, surveys, note-taking. A lot of work went into this. And that, I think, is a couple hundred pages long. So you can peruse that at your leisure. But the idea here is that made this document. This document, 23-page spread, was spiral bound and was intended to be carried by every city staff and elected official to every city meeting: planning board, zoning board, LDC, BID, IDA, city council, city staff. We're supposed to reference this. It is essentially a city government Bible, a decision-making document. So what does it say? All right, here's the purpose, right? Here's your table of contents. Here are the discussions about why this document is supposed to be a long-term document, that this is about values and principles in making choices. This is not a wish list. This is a how do we make a decision regardless of the particulars of a project that might present itself. The idea was that we don't know what Geneva is going to be presented with in the near term, but we do know how to make decisions for any eventuality. I really don't think people have taken seriously how comprehensive the comprehensive plan is. So, again, here's the groundwork, here's the context, here are the trends, here's where Geneva was, and here's where Geneva wanted to be. Here is what could happen if Geneva does not take this stuff seriously. Here is how we got to these values, that these are our values and vision statement. And now, how do we do that? These next 3 pages take every single one of those values and priorities and shows how to put them into practice, okay? So for example, this is the Green Committee discussion. We are stewards of our special natural setting. That's a value statement. What does that mean? That means our visually beautiful and ecologically sustainable environment should be celebrated and protected within the city and the surrounding area. So now it gives some examples of what we will and won't do. This is what's meant by a decision-making matrix. Can we put values into practice? We will help protect and make vital the expanse of rich and fertile countryside that surrounds us, right? We're going to be engaged in protecting the lake, the farmland, our agricultural nature beyond the city limits. We are going to encourage business growth that can leverage that. We are going to protect Seneca Lake through water quality enhancement efforts and continuing initiatives to physically and civically connect Geneva with the lake. Okay, the road diet, the natural plantings, the stormwater catchment, those align with this, but you'll see none of them are actually named here because, again, there was no way to know what grants would be available, what particular projects would get their footing in the years beyond this comprehensive plan. But this provides a framework for if we're considering doing something, does it align with this or does it not? Creating accessible connections to natural resources and increasing our recycling and landfill diversion rates, okay? Those are things we're striving for. Maybe even more important are the parameters of what we won't do. So if this is something we take seriously, being stewards of our natural setting, we will not take actions that undermine the agricultural and natural environment in which we are located, such as ignoring runoff issues or supporting mining or landfill expansion in the city or the surrounding area, right? Supporting the landfill and saying, oh, that might get revenue is inconsistent with our values. This wasn't about saying, city, do this or that on landfill issues. It was about saying, if you take this seriously, you must not allow this. Okay, hopefully you can see my cursor on the screen. We will not take any actions that fail to both protect and enhance the ecological state of Seneca Lake, while also improving accessibility and attractiveness of lakefront amenities for residents and visitors. Okay, now you'll see later on, there are some potential project recommendations, which include updating the zoning, which was completed. And if you look at the zoning, let me see if I can find that. Let me see. Okay, so if we go down here to page 40 and 41, remember this is a spread, so each page you're looking at in the PDF would have been 2 pages in this spiral bound book. There need to be some land use and zoning changes, right? Either a form-based code or a hybrid code. We're kind of closer to a hybrid code now. And what are some things that need to be addressed? Traditional urban design, land use flexibility, minimum parking requirements should be removed and possibly replaced with maximum parking requirements to limit the amount of space that is needlessly dedicated to parking. Now, you might say, oh, people are always complaining we don't have enough parking downtown. Let's set that aside for a second. Instead, look at like neighborhood development, land use of vacant parcels. The idea is that a lot of projects we might be missing out on because of our parking restrictions, which don't actually need as much parking as was originally intended in the old zoning. Accessory dwelling units, home occupations, bicycle parking. Review Geneva's list of prohibited industrial uses to make sure it's appropriate for a modern context. Now, this was cited, and there's additional discussion in the longer form document, the part 2, that talks about like chicken and beekeeping should not just be industrial uses. Those could, but again, we know that Geneva didn't pass those. But again, that was a potential recommendation. But also there are certain industrial uses that need to be restricted because of their impact on the lake. We wouldn't want to approve a bunch of new smelters to contribute to bad air quality, right? We saw what happened with the foundry. So the document goes into more detail talking about those things, all related to environmental quality. In addition, it recommends designating the lakefront parkland, which if you look at the new zoning document is done. Please pay attention to that, okay? Once something is established as a municipal park, there are special guidelines and regulations. Geneva took that step, and people shouldn't forget that. So when people start talking about developing the lakefront, it's not going to be that easy now that we're talking about parkland, okay? Page 38 and 39, I will tell you, was a bit of a capitulation to some initial disputes about the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan didn't initially contain these 2 pages because, as I just told you at the outset, the comprehensive plan was not meant to be a master plan. It was not meant to say, do these things right now and don't do these other things. So when it was delivered, this page wasn't included. This page was added because the council at the time said, hey, give us something short term that tells us what to really do. So they added this page to say, all right, let's take some example projects and show you what would be your short-term focus, your mid-term focus, long-term, and what are the things you should just be doing continually. You will see the Economic Opportunity Task Force was something that was supposed to get started right away. The council appropriated money for it. Never happened. It never happened. I don't know what happened to the money, but the task force was never formed. That's not your problem, Green Committee, although sustainable workforce development certainly would fit into the kinds of things that the Economic Opportunity Task Force was supposed to talk about, but that's neither here nor there right now. Okay, so now we're going to go on to part 2. Again, all of this is available on the website, and I'm pretty sure that both City Hall and the public library have hard copies of all of this, if you would prefer that, or I guess you could print it out, although I don't know that's the most sustainable option. So anyway, part 2 is for us nerds and policy wonks that want to get into the weeds of what more could be done. So This is not self-promotion, but I did spend several months the past year writing a series of articles to try to talk about some of the things that are in part 2 that seem to be neglected, right? People always say, why don't we do this? Or why don't we do that? It's like, you know what? Some experts have already thought about it, and maybe we should look at this and see what they say. So if you're interested in things about the city budget and how it's not sustainable, about land use, the things I was talking about the parkland restrictions, other things about downtown development, economic development, some other things in all of the studies currently on the shelf of city departments that could be reprioritized, that's all in here. But, and again, they give a summary of the community engagement, but really part 3 is like the details of community engagement. If you're interested in seeing what your friends and neighbors said. I don't think it identifies them by name, but just in case you're wondering the results of all that outreach. So I think what you're probably most interested in is section 3, which is the current sustainability practices and benchmarks. So let's skip into that. Okay, as I'm zooming through to what we are going to talk about, I want to draw your attention again to this Seneca Lake open space thing. And I just want to tell you that this was looking at what are the current uses. So they coded every single parcel to determine how is the parcel actually being used, not how it's currently zoned, and then kind of discussed the challenges and opportunities of our current zoning versus the proposed zoning. And again, not all of this did get adopted in the new zoning update that was just passed by council, but a lot of it did. And specifically, again, if you're interested in an open lakefront, I would just draw your attention. This is my bias. I would draw your attention to this section here that talks about how the current use, the park use of the lakefront residential district, because remember, the lakefront used to be zoned lakefront residential, which kept the idea open of having like patio homes or hotels or whatever. It is not consistent with the permitted uses, right? If the current zoning were to remain, future development should maintain public access to the water. But the city of Geneva should utilize its comprehensive plan process to determine the future vision for this very important area. And you'll see that in the community engagement section, there's a whole section about how overwhelmingly people want the lakefront open. If the process determines the parcel should remain a public park, the area should be rezoned to the open spaces use district, District X, which is described over here, allowing for parks, playgrounds, and similar recreational uses. That's a restrictive zone. And that is how the lakefront was rezoned. So just so you know, in case you're looking, it's part 2, page 28, 29. All right. So our interest here is current sustainability practices and benchmarks. And you might say, oh, wow, after all the attention given to all these topics, we get half a page, right? Yes, Green Committee, you only get half a page. And why is that? Well, you could look at it from a glass half empty perspective and say, I guess the Green Committee wasn't very active in the constructing of this, and therefore we didn't get much into it. Or you could look at it from the glass half full perspective, which I'm inclined to do, which is that there's so much about sustainability and environmental stewardship built into this. How do we create a beautiful, prosperous, connected, equitable, and sustainable community if we're not environmental stewards, right? So there's so much of that imbued in every other section, which is just a plug for me to say, please read all of it because it's all really good. I'm not saying I agree with all of it, but it's all really well reasoned. So if you don't agree with it, at least you can see where they're coming from and then maybe think about like how your particular goals fit with that. So because it's so much part and parcel of it, this section, I think, just kind of summarizes it, right? Sustainability is defined by a community's ability to meet its existing environmental, economic, and social equity needs without impacting future generations' abilities to meet their needs. Right? This is like indigenous sustainability philosophy, the seventh generation philosophy that we not only have to be asking, is this good for us? But are we leaving as much and as good for future generations, right? So that's right in the document. And again, that's a reflection of all of this community engagement. That's what people want. They want Geneva to be green and environmentally sustainable in the future because it is our environmental sustainability. That's a huge part of our economic development. It's a huge part of our social equity, right? We don't want to poison certain neighbors in the name of industry. So anyway, one of the marks of Geneva's progressive nature. Now, again, this is a snapshot in time. We had City Manager Horn, Mayor Stu Einstein at the helm. We had city committees, ad hoc committees, that were focused on all of these issues. We had a really engaged council that was showing up for trainings, not everybody, but showing up for trainings and really being engaged and stuff. And those conditions don't hold right now, but that doesn't mean the residents of the city have had a complete change of heart, okay? So one of the marks of Geneva's progressive nature is the city's philosophy of sustainability, as demonstrated by this plan's vision statement and the variety of economic, social, and environmental actions and policies therein discussed, right? Now, here are a couple of pullouts. Climate Smart Communities Program. The Green Committee, and shout out to Larry Campbell on this, because we're going to talk about the energy audit. The city had pursued this and gotten climate smart designation. It lapsed. I think we have it again now. Hooray. But that was important, right? So keeping up with that is important. The emissions inventory is important. So it's called out specifically in this. Cleaner, greener communities. That was the funding source for the comprehensive plan. So of course, the comprehensive plan has to talk specifically about that and how for the plan, we had a project benefit metrics report. Someone should find that and see if we met it, see if it needs updating, see if it's something for the long-term transformation benefits of a comprehensive plan. Have we kept our promise? The Green Committee could look at that. The Green Committee could grade or score the city's progress in implementing the plan paid for by Cleaner, Greener Communities of New York State, right, a NYSERDA initiative, and made possible by that funding for the express intent of aligning with the project benefit metrics report. Accountability. That anticipated benefits in energy savings in a 5, 15, and 30-year time frame. Well, we're 15 years out, folks. Maybe it's time to do that evaluation and to help the city correct if we've gotten off course. Again, the energy audit was mentioned here as something that should be updated. Other sustainable practices include the provision of recycling bins in public places and at events. Because at the time there was, the events factory, and there was a requirement that events recycle and use composting. Initially, that was natural upcycling. We didn't have a growing cycle on the scene at that point, but that requirement for events has gone away. The adoption of a renewable energy ordinance. We don't have that yet. And in fact, as you know, unfortunately, despite Jan Regan's valiant efforts, the community solar didn't go either. And development of a local tree planting program. Well, the Shade Tree Committee, and again, with the help of a lot of people, and I hate to leave anyone out, but we got to call out Jim Norwalk with this, definitely has gotten the tree nursery going, and the local tree planting program, I would say is a pretty, something we could say is a success, right? And then with Ann Hoyt and Jill Byington doing like the natural plantings at the lakefront, like there is a lot that has been done in accordance with the comprehensive plan that the Green Committee can point to as having done. But there's a lot of this plan that has gone undone. So, all in all, I guess that's to say This document, again, if you're interested in going through, here's that reference to our 1997 master plan, which talked about particular projects, right? Traditional urban design district, commercial areas. It established commercial uses on the lakefront. However, now they're suggesting through planning and regulatory tools, ensure it's beautiful, walkable with water-dependent uses that provide economic and recreational opportunities, right? Only water-dependent uses. Local revitalization plan, the downtown business development strategy, the neighborhood study, the 2011 economic development strategy, which another one's being done now, waterfront infrastructure feasibility study, North End brownfields, regional sustainability plan. You guys might want to look this up again. In 2013, the Finger Lake Sustainability Plan was developed with these three goals: land use and livability, water management, and transportation. The Green Committee could certainly plug into that, and NYSERDA might have some funding for doing that as well. Again, this is our project benefit metrics report. So let's look at those by 30-year plan. Have we met that? Have we saved this much gas? Have we diverted this much solid waste? Have we seen these energy savings? Again, there's a lot in this plan. And here's the more details from it. So now I'm in part 2 again, toward the end here, pages 20 to 26. And again, it is a community decision-making guide. It's not out of date. It hasn't lost its luster. Are there pieces of it that need to be revisited, updated, retooled, recommitted to? Yeah. Right? But there's also some stuff that's been done that should be celebrated. There's some stuff that's been ignored that should be mentioned. There are lots of things in here that need to be elevated again if we're serious about getting to that vision. And all of these details, and I mean, this is, this part's kind of my favorite part because it's got all the details and numbers and real analysis. They did give a score to every parcel in the city in the conditions report in the neighborhood study. My understanding is that's being updated now by John Brennan and Cassie Snyder, possibly with the League of Women Voters. I know Katie Labby, the former planner, had trained a group to go door to door and do this update to track our progress. I don't know if that has finished yet. But again, these values remain. Are there people now who say Geneva shouldn't be these things? I don't know, but I don't think the majority has deviated from this initial idea. And that's my assessment, or not assessment, that's my kind of guide to the comp plan. I can't say it better than the way it's said here. So again, my takeaway is please read it. It's available to everybody on the internet. It's available in hard copy at the library and City Hall. We should be using it. We should be asking elected officials to use it. It wasn't done for nothing. It was done for a purpose. And in my view, it's one of the best and most useful guides that there could be for all aspects, every agency, every group, every committee in the city. So good luck.